Right, we've got all our marketing channels, so how do we monitor what's working? First up, we have the most enormous spreadsheet. And in this spreadsheet, we track every single metric on a monthly basis. We look at sessions on the website. Where are those sessions coming from? We look at YouTube watch hours. We see how far our Instagram posts have reached. We look at our newsletter subscribers. We look at our paid subscribers. We look at all our metrics and we run them against the previous month, but mainly also against the previous year. And we see, are we making gains? Are we making improvements? Now, we don't worry about each month individually because it's all far more about the overall trend. You can have a bad month, not because of any fault of your own, just because the platforms change or because things that you thought were going to do really well that were good content just happen not to land particularly well, or because everyone's distracted by major world events going on that mean that they're not that interested in shopping with you at that point in time. What we do instead is we look back over kind of 3 months, over 6 months, and we see, are we going in the right direction? Are we seeing our newsletter build? Are we seeing our website sessions going up? Are we seeing the time people are spending on our website going up? We monitor those kind of metrics and we just want to see a general feeling of growth. Now, we don't look at those weekly because, as I say, if you look at it weekly, there's so many different things that can feed into it that aren't really in your control or that you might not expect. And if we look weekly, we can end up wanting to shift our strategy too regularly. We don't want to shift the strategy all the time. We want to pick a strategy and go with it. And then every 3 months, every 6 months, review what's working, what's not working. Otherwise, if we review it too regularly, it just means that we're constantly changing. We're never in a flow. And as a small team, we have to be able to have a decent flow. When something flops, we don't worry about it. If something doesn't do as well as we think it's going to do, we move on. We keep trying that format. If we feel like the odd one does do well, we'll keep going with it because who cares if one flops in 10 but the 10th does really well, that's worth still having done the failing 9. If after a period of time we feel like it's flopping and we also don't think it's particularly good, what we were creating, then we'll stop it. And so there's certain things that we phase out because actually, you know what, they're more effort than they're worth. And so I did this one period on YouTube where I had these studio diaries and we did 5 episodes. We were going to do them really regularly where I'd talk about what's going on in the studio, what are we working on, what are we going to create next, here's some things in the works. They were really quite time-intensive videos to create. We did 5 of them, so we gave it a good run. But by the 5th one, we thought, actually, we're not getting a huge number of watch hours on them, and they're a lot of work to create, and so I'm not sure that's a valuable use of our time, so we culled it. That's how we tend to check if something fails time and time again, or just doesn't do as well as it should for the time it's taken. It's all about the value to the time it took, then we'll stop it. But if something surprises us and does really well, then we'll monitor that as well and we will do a bit more of it. So we started doing this honest answers thing. Someone had written to me and said, why are your kits so expensive? And I'd written a post back saying, they're expensive because of X, Y, Z. And I explained it all very fully and that did really well. It worked really well on our article for our blog. It worked really well from an SEO perspective. It worked really well in a video form and it worked really well on Instagram. So we kept that going and we have done since then lots more honest answers ones like, why don't we release more designs? Why don't we wholesale? Why don't we collect reviews? So if something performs well, we do keep an eye on that and think, right, is there something more we can do along those lines that helps us as a business, but also helps bring in new customers and inform those customers, creating value for them. So as a team, we are me, Jen, and Meg. Now, Meg mainly focuses on our studio membership. So a lot of what she's creating is content that goes behind the paywall. But that's still, as I've said, critically important content from an SEO perspective. So Meg is there creating loads of really high value articles which go onto our blog and they have little captions in them that help us from SEO. But she also does create some really great long form articles. So she would write an article, say, on metal embossing. And as part of that article, she's going to do loads of research about how metal embossing is formed in different cultures in society, how you go about doing metal embossing. Create a video that shows you the process you need. And then we'll also obviously include some links to the products we sell around metal embossing. So those kinds of articles are generally created by Meg. I will set a structure at the beginning. I will send her over, these are all the things I think we should mention in it. She will write the article, Jen will review the article gets scheduled and goes live. So that's kind of how we work through in that flow. Then the main element of marketing across all our other channels is conducted between me and Jen. And we have a big spreadsheet where we schedule everything and we divide. We set responsibilities. So we have blocks of text, say on a newsletter, which are always written by Jen, blocks of text that are always written by me. And we set those schedules about a month in advance. We have these Google Sheets we can both access. We have our own to-do lists, which are accessible to each other. So we can see what we're doing and we can make plans accordingly. That can mean we very much collaborate on an individual reel where Jen will compile loads of content for me, send it to me, I'll record the voiceover, send it back to her, she'll schedule it. Some of it is really working together like that. Some of it's totally isolated where I'll say, right, I'm going to write this newsletter at the end of the month, you don't need to do anything on it. Some of it will be saying to her, right, we're going to do this newsletter in the middle of the month, you don't need to send it to me. If you want someone to proof it, Meg will proof it. And so part of what we try to do is not micromanage each other. We use each other when we can, but we also try and work independently because there is no point us both dabbling in each other's work. In order to make that work though, we always write newsletters from our own perspective. So if the newsletter's been written by Jen, or if the newsletter's been written by Meg, she will say, from Jen, from Meg. We don't try and fake each other's tone of voice or else you'd end up being pernickety about what someone's written because you're just trying to get into your tone of voice, not because what they've written is wrong. So we're quite good at separating our tasks and taking ownership over our tasks visibly to our audience. The final thing I want to talk about is resources that enable us to do all of this. And the first thing is, when I started this business, I had absolutely no marketing budget and we had no money we put into marketing, at least for the first sort of 4 years really. I didn't have any money to hire experts to get people to do different things. And I think that was super valuable because it meant I had to go and learn. And there are some amazing podcasts out there that can teach you so much about marketing. If you want some suggestions, let me know and I can put some in the comments and I can put some in the links of some of my favourite marketing podcasts. But I have listened to podcasts that have walked me through step-by-step process of how you create an email flow. I've walked through podcasts which talk about what you need to do in order to get an SEO structured article. We have some really amazing free resource out there you can use. So don't automatically assume just because you don't know how something works that it's complicated. The only experts that we actually use we use Lindsay, our web developer, who helps us on all our SEO technical stuff. We have Julie and Sophie who run our paid ads. And then for a while, we also worked with chap Aaron, who he trained us for 3 months on various ways we should look at our SEO. So he gave us 3 months where for an hour every 2 weeks, he would have a little session with us where he would train us on how to do SEO, not do our SEO for us. The important thing to say here is it all takes a lot of time. When you're learning about how to do things, but also you're bringing these things in place, it is hard work. And I would say marketing probably takes up about 60% of my time. It takes up all of Jen's time, and it probably takes up about 30% of Meg's time. That's a lot of time and effort that is going into creating things. A lot of things that work, a lot of things that don't work. But the one thing I think with marketing is that there is no quick fix, I've found. There is no easy win. The stuff that does really well tends to be stuff that you've worked hard at. And over time, people get to know that what you're creating is credible, what you're creating is valuable. And so people look forward to what you're going to receive. If we started cutting corners on marketing, if we outsourced our newsletter to someone else, yeah, they could create it quicker, they could do it easier, but I think you would lose so much value that those open rates would massively drop. Who wants a mailing list of 100,000 people where only 5% of them open it? I'd rather have a mailing list of 10,000 people and have 50% opening it. So stop targeting the wrong metrics, basically, and be aware of the fact it is hard and it does take time. So the biggest things I've learned about marketing are firstly to diversify all your marketing streams. As I talked about, we have loads of different channels. For the first kind of 3-4 years, Instagram was incredible for us. So I never needed other channels. And that meant I overly relied on it. And when Instagram algorithm just kind of fell off a cliff, the business really struggled because of it. So the first most important thing is do not rely on any one channel. The second one is don't feel like everything has to be hard or trend led. Really focus on who your end user is. What is that customer likely to be interested in? And make content with that one person in mind. Virality is definitely, I think, overrated. We have a really successful growing business because we target the individual customer, not being everyone's cup of tea. The third thing is don't get demoralized. If content doesn't perform well, you have to just keep going. It can be really demoralizing at times, creating content, marketing your business when nothing seems to land, but you have to just keep going. The fourth one is you don't need to do everything, you just need to do some stuff consistently. So don't try and spread yourself too thin. Pick the few things you can do, and then once you're on top of them, add one more thing to it. We didn't start doing all these things at the beginning, but we added them over time. So I was clearly talking for too long before as the video cut off and I didn't even realise. But I just wanted to wrap up the part 3 of our marketing one. And the main thing I just wanted to say is the key principles that I always come back to when we're thinking about our marketing for our small business is firstly a fixation on our most dedicated customer. And so everything we're trying to do from a marketing perspective is about making sure it's interesting to the person who reads everything we do. And we know that most people will not read everything we do. And in fact, 99% of people won't read everything we do. But one of the things I'm really kind of fixated on is making sure we're not being boring to the person that does. If someone loves what we do, I want to make sure if we send them an email, if we put something on Instagram, if we create a new video, if we do all these various different initiatives that are all part of our kind of overall marketing strategy, if we write a journal article, it's something they haven't read before. I feel like if I just constantly kept hammering home about why you should do embroidery or top tips for beginning embroidery, things that might appeal to that first time customer, I'd lose the interest of those existing people. And as they always say, it's far cheaper to retain a customer than it is to find a new one. And so the main first part marketing principle that I always kind of stick to is this idea of fixating on our most dedicated customer. And the second one is about a focus on the long term. And I talked about this a lot before. This is my career. This business is not a flash in the pan thing for me. This is not something I'm intending to do for 10 years and get out of. This is my life and this is my career. And I hope to be doing the Fabled thread till I am grey and old, in which case I'm focusing on everything being long term. I don't care how our metrics look over the course of a week, even a month. We'll review things every 3 months and we'll look and see how we're doing. Because the issue is if you focus too much on the short term, it can make you really reactive. But we're also long term in the fact that our products are changing regularly. If we launch a range, we're not trend led. We're not doing an autumn, winter, spring, summer collection. Our products have a real evergreen life expectancy and they take a long time for someone to make. So the products themselves are long term. We don't need to push and pitch something repeatedly over the course of the month because we'll be able to do that this year, we'll be able to pitch it next year, the year after, which means it makes it possible for us to be long term. And then the final one is that we know our customers are long term. We know the customers come back for years and years. We have customers who've shopped with us over 50 times. The customers have a long term view on this too. This is not a trend led hobby. People have been doing making stuff, people have been doing embroidery, needlepoint for hundreds of years. It's not going to go anywhere. And so it also enables us to be long term. So that's one thing I want to say is everything we do is about focusing on the long term objective, not the short term, which isn't necessarily right for every business because people have different circumstances. And then the final one is understanding your purpose. And our purpose as a business is to empower creativity. Everything we need to do needs to be centered around this idea of empowering creativity. And that means we inspire people. We want to educate people. We want to encourage people. We want to simplify the process for people. And so that message needs to come through in all the marketing initiatives we do is this idea of what is our purpose. It means we're not going to collaborate with someone to do a homewares interiors kind of concept. We're not going to suddenly start designing plates because how does that help empower creativity? And so that core purpose ends up being almost like your guardrails for your initiatives. So you're only going to do a particular series or a particular kind of new block of content if it fits within that criteria. That took a while for me to properly understand what was our purpose. And we have kind of a tier of 6 different vision items that sit below our overall purpose and mission. Those things actually sound really woolly and sound really kind of pointless to some extent, but there's a reason most businesses have it, and that's because it becomes your guiding principle that enables you to say, yes, that opportunity is for me, no, that opportunity is not for me, without needing to go and analyse every aspect of each one. So that's the kind of 3 big principles. And one question, because now I'm recording this after we've recorded and we've published a few, one question I saw a few people had asked was about the idea of how do we do it when it was just me, and the fact is we just did less. And I've only had help from a marketing perspective for the last now we're coming up for 12 months full-time, probably that Jen has been working with me 12 months full-time on marketing, but before that she was doing a few days each week for at least 6 months before that. So I've had a bit of support for the last 18 months, but the business has been going for nearly 6 years. So before that, it was all on me, and that's why it was a gradual build-up. In hindsight, firstly, I wish I'd got help sooner. I wish I had someone in the team sooner. It's invaluable having someone else work on this stuff with me, and it has grown the business. And so she's, paid for herself 20 times over. And so it's really worth having someone support, and Jen's brilliant, and she will edit this video, so Jen, you're brilliant. And I couldn't do everything without her. And it's not just me setting a strategy. She's coming in and she has her ideas and she has her approaches, and there are ways we do things I would never have thought to do and that are just infinitely better than what I would do. So this is not a solo effort. When it was just me, I focused much heavier on certain individual channels like Instagram, email flows, things like that. But we didn't have a blog at that point. We didn't have such a focus on SEO. And so there's various things we didn't do at that point in time, which would have been beneficial to do. I learned about a lot of everything through just listening to podcasts. I listened to so many millions and millions of podcasts, which taught me how to do stuff. We've never really used any external advisors because I'm a northerner, which means I'm inherently quite stingy. No offence to other northerners out there, but it meant I'm really not inclined to go and pay anyone for something I feel like I could learn or do myself. And that's why a lot of this stuff I have learned and done myself, because that's just my nature. And the nature of a small business is generally you are quite cash strapped. I think being cash strapped makes you far more resilient and resourceful in the long run. And so I'm quite grateful for the fact that we have grown in a bootstrapped manner. So I hope all this was useful, and I love marketing and I like it now because we know what we're doing and it's less emotional. Whereas I think a lot of the time marketing can feel quite emotional when you're trying to sell a product you love and you don't feel like you're getting traction. And it's nice to share this video at a point where I finally think we have a bit of a process and a structure which is working. So that's everything. Bye.